going on? Blossom is back, and welcome back to another episode of Top Drive. Today I want to answer a very simple question. What is my most used and what are my least used legendary prize cars in my garage? So obviously you guys know how it is. I'm going to find the average of how many times I race every single legendary prize card that I own per day, starting off with 0 to 1 times a day, all the way to the top. Now, everything here are cars that I own, so these are prize cars that I own. There's no IDR over here. There's no Camaro ZL1. Well, there's no Camaro ZL1 regardless, because this is legendaries only. So I have 44 legendary prize cars, and today we're going to find out which are the ones that I use the most and which are the ones that I use the least. Now, every car that you see here is 100% in order, which means that the Bentley Continental is like the car that I use the most out of 0 and 1 times a day, and the Bentley Continental GT Pikes Peak is the car that I use the least out of 0 and 1 times a day. So with that said, let's get into it. Starting this off is the Bentley Continental GT Peak. Now I do have dual screen again. I'm finally making this. This is the first time I'm actually making this style of races day video, races 2-day video with my normal setup with my double monitors, which means that I have the spreadsheet on the other monitor and I can tell you live what car is raced how many times a day. So the first one, the most useless legendary in my garage. Congratulations, the Bentley GT Pikes Peak. I have raced this thing 0 times, which means it has an average of 0 races a day. I've owned it for 163 days. I've not used it once, and of course it is stock. Next up is the Carrera GT 0.03. I've owned this for 187 days, and I've only raced it 6 times. And yeah, it kind of goes all the way up. So some interesting ones to note would be the TVR. Now the TVR ended up a lot lower than I thought it was going to be. My TVR, I've owned it for 373 days, so just slightly over a year. I've raced it 253 times, which gives it an average of 0.68 times a day. So it's not really bad like the Carrera or the Continental, but it's definitely at the bottom. When you think about it, all these prize cars at the bottom tier are prize cars that I use less than 1 time a day. And every prize car above this I've used at least more than once a day. So these are really sad. The 177 as well is a huge blow. I only used this 0.76 times a day because I've owned it for 607 days, but I've only raced it 460 times, which is a bit of a shame. Why I think that the 177 is barely used is because although I absolutely love this car, it is one of my favorite Aston Martins ever made. This, the DB5, and the DBS Superleggera are in the top 3. Why I barely use my 177 is I do believe that the RQ is a bit too high. I know it has a high top speed, amazing MRA, and the handling is good too. But the 177 is kind of just like one of those legendary prize cars where you can get a lot of value out of it if you max it out. But if you just have it at 1 star, the 0 to 60 just isn't very good. So even though it has really good MRA, compared to its competition, I mean, when you think about it, the TVR, oh, it's RQ90 now because it got a buff. But, you know, when you think about it, you know, 3.5, it's the same as the M3 GTR. It's, you know, the same as the M4 GTS, you know, and it's higher than the Chevrolet Corvette Z06. So what I'm trying to say, this is a car that I really only use for test bowl and 1 mile, but when there's a test bowl and a 1 mile, I usually want to go with the Koenigsegg Jesko. So the 177 is a bit of a shocker, very, very low usage. I feel like if I ever max it out, it would be one of my most used legendaries in my garage, but now that it's at 1 star, not a lot of use out of it. And capping off legendary prize cars that I use less than 1 time a day is going to be the Bentley Continental. I've owned it for 331 days. I've only raced it 299 times, which gives it an average of 0.9 times a day. Sorry, Cannonball, the thing's a piece of crap. Unless you max it out, which you did. Anyway, moving on now, we talk about cars that I race between 1 to 2 times a day. And over here, as you can see, what a shocker. It is the Dodge Viper SRT ACRX. Freaking love this car, man. But, like, I'm actually genuinely surprised. I race this car less on average than a freaking Project 8. Now, to be fair, the Project 8 is one of my oldest prize cars, so I was talking to the guys in my Discord server about this. Me and the Project 8 is kind of like an arranged marriage, you know? Like, this was like the 4th ever legendary prize car I ever won. So obviously I used it a lot back in the day because it was like one of the only few legendaries I had. Like, this is when I had like 10 legendaries and the Project 8 was one of them. So I had to use them. I had to use it. But because I used it so many times back in the day when I first won it in 2019 or 2018, I can't even remember what year it was anymore, only because I used it so many times, I knew and found out how bad it actually was. But anyway, the ACRX, a huge surprise. I've only raced it it on average 1.14 times a day. I've owned it for 121 days, and I've only raced it 138 times. To be fair, I did win this car towards the end of the year in 2020, and I was gone for about 3 weeks when I was in the UK, so that's basically 21 days. None of these cars are getting used. But yeah, 959 Dakar, also a little low, kind of surprised it's there. Porsche 911 GT1 road car, that's my oldest legendary, and as you can see, I've owned it, well, as you can see later when I show the spreadsheet, I've owned it for 1,479 days. I've raced it 1,793 times, giving it an average of 1.21. The F1 GTR short tail, it's kind of like another version of the Aston Martin 177, where the stats just aren't good enough for RQ92. I barely ever use it. I mean, the MRA is pretty good, and let's be honest, this is an old picture. I think it got its top speed cut. But at the end of the day, yeah, the McLaren F1 GTR is a car that I just barely ever touch, which is actually a bit of a shocker. The Gunpowder Polo R as well is a pretty disappointing price car. Later when I show the spreadsheet, you will see that my Gunpowder Polo's win percentage is actually pretty freaking bad. It's only 80%. I've had it for 317 days, only raced it 456 times. So now moving on, we have the cars that I race in between 2 to 3 times a day. And these are, you know, the average price cars, I would say. These are cars that can get me value, but not all the time. Is definitely not my first pick. I mean, a good way to really say this is this is A team, this is B team, this is C team, and this is D team. So all the cars that I have between 2 and 3 races are my legendary prize cars in my D team. And to be completely honest, most prize cars that I have underneath this rank is not E team and F team. It's just cars that I don't use. I mean, it makes sense because like the Bentley I never use, the Carrera I never use, the Volkswagen I never use, the KTM I never use, although you can get a lot of good value out of the KTM if you max it out, trust me. The M4 GTS I barely use. I think one car that will in particular that will shoot up would be the ACRX. Once I max it out, I'll be getting a lot more value out of that. But yeah, cars I use between 2 and 3 times a day. As you can see, these are pretty average price cars. I mean, you have the Chrysler ME412, which, you know, has a low 0 to 60, a very good 0 to 60. In fact, high top speed, good MRA. You have cars like the Aventador SVJ, which I feel like would be really good if you max it out, but the handling is very weak on that, only 91. And talking about 91, the Roof CTR3, same story, really good MRA, but the handling isn't as good. McLaren P1 GTR. Crazy how low the P1 GTR stands. Now remember, the P1 GTR, I didn't win it the first time. I won it on the rerun, and when I won it on the rerun, it came after I won the 908. So you have to remember that when I won the P1 GTR, I already had the 908 in my garage, which meant that the P1 GTR was never the best car in my garage. If you got the P1 GTR the first time, then you would probably have this at the top. But it isn't at the top for me because I didn't get it the first time, so it never had a stint in my garage where it was the best car. I won the Senna before the P1 GTR, so it's pretty interesting to see where my P1 GTR lands. The Bugatti Huayra BC as well. I mean, it's funny actually because once again, this is a lower tier because the Zonda Revolution is used more, and the Zonda Revolution is just a better car. The Apollo Intenza Emozione, I freaking love this car, and I try to use it when I can, but at the end of the day, when you have the Peugeot 908, when you have the Peugeot 905, when you have the McLaren Senna, it's very hard to really justify and utilize the Apollo Intenza Emozione. Now, I treat the Apollo as more of a twisty car than the drag car, but the Senna is more of a hybrid to me. But for the Apollo, I really try and refrain from using it on the drags. The MRA isn't like, well, it's bad. It's not bad when I tell you the number because I think it's like in the 80s or the 90s, but for an RQ96 car, that's bad. If it's not 100, that's bad. Lancia LC2 is a very strong car as well. One of my surprises, in fact, to see how low it landed. Now, at the end of the day, any prize car that is like 2 races on average and above are cars that I use pretty frequently, but I expected the Lancia to be a tier above, to be honest. I do use the Lancia, at least in my mind, quite a lot. I've owned it for 219 days, and I've raced it 631 times, win ratio of 86% with an average of 2.88, so it is very close. And the Koenigsegg 1.1 is borderline 3 races a day at 2.94 average, so I race it 2.94 times a day on average. Anyway, moving on now, our cars, legendary prize cars that I race between 3 and 4 times a day, and as you can see, everything here in in the top 3 ranks are heavy hitters. These are cars that I see literally every day, and I feel like I race them until they need servicing, okay? Aston Martin Vulcan, I have a Fuse in that, so it has amazing handling. I think 100, 203, something like that. My Porsche 935, absolutely amazing. The Bugatti Veyron, the Peugeot 908, and the Viper. So if you want to know some of the numbers over here, my Peugeot 908, I've won it 205 days ago on the 4th of July, and I've raced it 791 times, giving it a average of 3.86, so a very high 3. And then my Viper, I've had it for 499 days, and I've raced it 1,940 times, giving it an average of me racing it 3.89 times a day. So moving on now, our cars that I race between 4 and 4.99 times a day. These are serious cars, okay? So we have the Jesko Absolute, the Peugeot 205, the Lamborghini Urus, the Alfa Romeo Pro Car, the Revolution, and surprise, surprise, the Huracan Performante. Now, I remember a long time ago, I think earlier on in 2021, I ranked all the legendary prize cars I had won up to that point when I published the video. And one of the controversial polls that people were talking about was how high I ranked the Huracan Performante. But I think this speaks for itself. I use this a lot. This is my most used Lamborghini, and I would say that it has a great bargain. I mean, for 97 RQ, you're getting great MRA, a relatively low 0 to 60. The handling isn't the best, but for a Lamborghini sense, the handling's very good. Not to mention, I do have an upgrade in my Huracan Performante as well. It is actually very useful. I actually really like this car. If you want to know the stats for my Huracan Performante, it comes in, and I've owned it for 722 days, so over 2 years. I've raced it 3,598 times with a win ratio of 92%. I use this car on average 4.98 times a day. It is so freaking close to actually going top tier, which is crazy. Other cars would be the Zonda Revolution. I use that 4.84 times a day, and the Pro Car, which I use 4.76 times a day. But last but not least, let's talk about the cream of the crop. These are my most used legendary prize cars, and I think there's no question over here besides the Demon. But you need to remember, my Demon is maxed. It's only one of 2 prize cars that I have that are maxed. The Demon and the Viper are the only 2, and the Demon, I maxed it as fast as I possibly could. Like, that is my favorite prize car, bro. So anyway, this is the top. No questions, right? Peugeot 905B, it's a better version of the Fat, which is already very high on the list. Pikes Peak, you know, this is a fantastic car for absolutely everything. Off-road, on-road, twisty, fast, anything. As long as it's not a test bowl, as long as it's not a 1 mile, I will deploy it absolutely anywhere. As long as it's not, you know, city streets or anything, then yeah, I would deploy it anywhere. Dirt, wet, dry, anywhere. Senna as well, one of the few legendary prize cars that I genuinely really want to max. Honestly, once I finish maxing out all my Dodge prize cars, you know, it'll give me a bit of freedom to focus on what legendary prize car I want to max that isn't Dodge, and the Senna is on the top of that list. If I had a top 3 non-Dodge prize cars I wanted to max, it would be the Senna, the Pro Car, and the Jesko Absolute. Now, I really want to max the Vulcan as well, considering I already have an upgrade into it, but looking at this list really shows how much value the Senna, the Pro Car, and the Jesko really bring to the team. Demon is coming in 3rd place. I race my Demon on average 5.96 times a day. I've owned it for 512 days. No, sorry, I've owned my Demon, sorry, I thought I was reading the Senna stats. I race my Demon on average 6.89 times a day. I've owned it for 1,101 days, and I raced my Demon 7,582 days with a win ratio of 95%, which is absolutely insane. Porsche 918 comes in 2nd place, and the Bugatti Chiron Sport comes in 1st. So yeah, I think this is a very accurate representation of what are the most used prize cars and least used prize cars in general, because when you see here, when you look at the list, a lot of these prize cars are among some of the best prize cars ever given out. You have the Jesko, you have the 905, the Pikes Peak, the Bugatti Chiron Sport, the Zonda Revolution, the Pro Car, the Urus. Some prize cars where I feel like some people might be like, yeah, it's actually not that good, Blossom, would be the Demon, but my Demon's max. and maybe the Huracan Performante, but I want to give them credit where credit is due. The Huracan Performante is a freaking beast, bro. And obviously the third rank is pretty good too. Vulcan, the FAP, the GTSR, all amazing cars, and the Moby Dick as well. But anyway, let's get to my spreadsheet. Alright guys, here we go, spreadsheet time. So this is my most used prize car. It is indeed the Bugatti Chiron Sport. I race this thing on average 10 times a day. That means that every day I get this car on average to service at least once a day. It even has a win ratio of 95%. I've owned it for 709 days and I've raced it 7,218 times. Next is the Porsche Spider 8.24, 90% win ratio. See, for a 100 RQ car, 90% win ratio is pretty bad in my opinion. But anyway, let's go to days owned because I want to show you what my oldest prize car is. I feel like some of you loyal viewers might even know what it is. Yes, it is the 911 GT1 road car. So you see what I mean? The Jaguar Project 8 was my fourth ever legendary prize car. I've had it for 1,000 days now, over 1,000 days. So, you know, that explains why I have over 1,000 races on a car that I hate so much. Here is the saddest thing though. Let's go to races and let's go to most race to least race. So everything here highlighted in blue are prize cars that I've raced more than 1,000 times. And out of every prize car I've raced more than 1,000 times, the Jaguar Project 8 has by far the lowest win percentage, coming in at 82%. There's no 83, and I don't think there's any 84. The next percentage comes in at 85 with the Moby Dick and the Aston Martin Vulcan. So yeah, it speaks volumes, bro. Okay, the Jaguar Project 8 is a piece of crap. And out of every prize car that I've raced at least 1,000 times, it is also one of the lowest averages. It has one of the lowest averages of how many times I race it a day, 1.61. The other one is going to be the Porsche GT1 road car. So there's a correlation here between these two cars. The GT1 road car and the Project 8 are cars that I've had for a very, very long time. For a very, very long time. I mean, 1,479 days, 1,003 days. Of course, I'm going to race them a lot early on in the game when I won them because they were one of my few prize cars. Oh, sorry, this is a win percentage of 70. I didn't even see that. Okay, 75. Yeah, the 911 GT1 road car is also a piece of crap. But why I give more stick to the Project 8 over the GT1 road car is because the Project 8 is RQ 90, bro. 90. Look at, like what? It's just like the Peugeot 205 T16 has a lower RQ and it has a much higher, like, just average daily. It makes no sense. The Project 8 should not be 90. And I think at one point the Project 8 was like 93 RQ. I know this is a legendary, you know, prize car statistic video, but it's kind of turned into a bashing the Project 8 video. But it's a bit of a meme. And I feel like some people don't believe me when I say the Project 8 is crap. It's crap! You know, the Porsche 911 GT1 road car at least is RQ 85, but that's 90. I don't know, man. I'm gonna leave it alone now. Okay, let's talk about win ratio actually. So highest to lowest, my highest win ratio goes to the Demon, 95%, and it has more races than the Chiron Sport. But however, it is going to be obvious the Bugatti is going to overtake the Demon in terms of races eventually, you know, coming in. But still, the Demon has had a very, very good run. You know, I don't even give like my Demon special treatment. I put it in basically every race I can. I even ran it in the Eco event, which was, you know, very classy move from Hutch, which was actually a homage to a player that passed. And I used the Demon, and that was an event where everyone was using like freaking Remax and Jesko Absolutes and Bugatti Chiron Sports. I used my Jesko and I used my Demon, and guess what? My Demon stood up to the competition, okay? Because it went in and out alive with a 95% win ratio still. It didn't even tank that much. Chiron Sport 95 as well. And then look at this. The Alfa Romeo Pro car, absolutely amazing. 94% win ratio. And I've only had it for 359 days. And I've already raced it 1,709 times. Freaking good car, this, okay? So yeah, all these cars above 90, very good. You know, the 1.1, the GTSR, 918, I guess. But 918 for 100 RQ, if you... Yeah, I don't know, man. Not that good. Peugeot as well, the 908 HDI, the Lamborghini Aventador SVJ. Now, this one's a bit of a surprise, the SVJ. I barely use the SVJ. It's one of the lower cars I use, coming in at 2.23. I'm actually surprised it has such a high win ratio, considering that I have it stock. Well, not stock, but at 111. McLaren Senna as well, just slightly under 90%, but it's an absolutely amazing car. Once again, I want to max it out. The Lamborghini, oh, sorry, I misspelled that. Urus, also coming in a very, very useful car. I use it 4.74 times a day. Some very good cars here. here, but as you can see, the Project 8 among the bottom. My worst prize cars in terms of win ratio would be the Bentley, I guess, because I never raced it, or the Birdcage. The Birdcage at 27, but then again, I've barely raced it too. The first one that really stands out is the GT1 road car, because that's over 1,000 races at 75. Some pretty bad ones would be the Skigera. Skigera, you know, close to 500 races and only 77% win ratio. McLaren F1 short tail as well, bit of a disappointment, huh? Over 500 races, only a 78% win ratio. What else we got? The Honor Dier in the 300s of 81, and the 177 are actually quite disappointing, 600 of 82. Jaguar Project 8, 1,000 of 82%. So yeah, some pretty weak cars over here. And in terms of days owned, let's go big to small. Yeah, I mean the oldest one is the 911 Project 8. I think we've already seen this one already. Let's talk about tune. I want to know how many I have stock. So I have 3 prize cars stock. It's the Skigera, the Nardo, and the Continental GT Pikes Peak. But anyway, like I said, with these statistics, I can look at them all freaking day. The legendary prize car one is probably the one I wanted to do the most. It's probably going to be the last episode in this like race day series. Unless you like it, I will make more. But this is kind of like the cream of the crop. When it comes to statistics, everybody wants to talk about legendary prize cars, and I've now done it. But anyway, hope you guys have a great day. I'm going to stay safe, wash your hands, and I am sorry if you are a fan of Jaguar, because this might have been a pretty tough video to watch. I love the car in real life, man, but in the game, it's hot garbage. But anyway, I hope you guys have a good day. I'm gonna stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace!
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly, got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly, got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville,
Pontiac.
hold tight all night, cruise to Jacksonville,
Atlantic.
blonde hair, don't care, look like Leslie Brooks, pin up girls everywhere with the drop dead look, swing it side to side as we slow dance to the night, when I'll hold your perfect hand and take you out just